Rasputin, the mad monk who hypnotized Russia. The mystery of Rasputin, from the frozen lands of Siberia to the dark corridors of the Winter Palace. The story of Grigori Rasputin is one of the most enigmatic and controversial in Imperial Russia. A man whose mere presence was enough to inspire both devotion and fear. For some, he was a mystic with supernatural powers. For others, a manipulative charlatan who led the Romanov dynasty to disaster. Rasputin's story is shrouded in myths, rumors, and contradictions. Was he truly a miraculous healer or merely a skilled hypnotist? Was he a pawn in the political game of Tsarist Russia or the true puppet master behind the throne? How did an uneducated peasant become the most influential confidant of the royal family? In this episode of Dark History Files, we will explore the truth behind the man, the legend, and the myth. We will unravel the lesser-known events of his life, those rarely told, which reveal a much more complex picture of his existence. Get ready to dive into a story of power, scandal, mysticism, and conspiracy that continues to raise questions to this day. Origins in Siberia. The Child of Visions, 1869 to 1892. The story of Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin begins deep in Siberia, a land dominated by brutal winters and ancient beliefs. He was born in January 1869 in Pokrovskoye, a small, isolated village on the banks of the Tura River in the Tobolsk province. His cradle was not of gold but of worn wood, marked by the poverty and harshness of Russian peasant life. His family, though humble, was deeply rooted in Orthodox faith and the superstitions of Russian folklore. A child marked by mystery from an early age, Rasputin showed signs of being different. He was not an ordinary child. He spoke little, had an intense gaze, and, according to village accounts, could predict small events before they happened. Some neighbors claimed he had visions, while others simply saw him as a strange and misfit child. In his childhood, events occurred that fueled his legend. It is said that at the age of 6, Rasputin had a vision in which he precisely described the location of a stolen horse, an incident that astonished the villagers, who saw it as a sign of divine blessing. Others, however, believed it was witchcraft. But young Grigori was no saint. He was also known for his rebellious nature and attraction to chaos. He stole, lied, and ran away from home, losing himself in the snowy fields for days. His reputation as a juvenile delinquent was nearly as strong as the rumors about his mystical abilities. The tragedy that marked him for life, one of the lesser-known episodes of his childhood, is the death of his older brother, Dmitri. The two boys, in a mischievous adventure, fell into the icy waters of the Tura River. While Rasputin survived, Dmitri became gravely ill and died shortly after, consumed by fever. This event had a profound impact on young Grigori, who thereafter began experiencing what he called divine visions. Some historians suggest that his guilt and trauma may have influenced his later obsession with religion and his quest for redemption. The duality of Rasputin, between sin and enlightenment as he grew. Rasputin found himself torn between two worlds. On one hand, his family expected him to follow the traditional path of a Russian peasant, working in the fields, obeying the church, and leading a modest life. But Rasputin's mind was restless. Despite his lack of formal education, he never learned to read or write fluently. His natural intelligence allowed him to absorb knowledge intuitively. As a young man, he was a frequent visitor to local taverns, where he drank heavily, fought, and chased women. Yet in moments of sobriety, he spoke of God, visions, and the destiny of the soul. This contradiction between debauchery and spirituality would become a hallmark of his adult life. His marriage to Praskovia Dubrovina in 1887, at the age of 18, did not completely change his lifestyle. Though he had children and occasionally attempted to lead a more stable existence, his need for something greater, something divine, continued to grow within him. The spiritual calling and the birth of a legend in the early 1890s, Rasputin experienced what he described as a mystical revelation. Some accounts suggest that a vision of the Virgin Mary compelled him to abandon his former life and seek a spiritual path. Others believe his conversion was more pragmatic. After being accused of several minor crimes in his village, he saw religion as an opportunity for reinvention. Whatever the case, his fate was sealed. With nothing but a tunic and unshakable faith, Rasputin left his Siberian home and embarked on a long pilgrimage to Russia's most important monasteries. During this journey, he began perfecting the art that would make him famous: his hypnotic charisma and his ability to influence people. The rise of Rasputin, from peasant to the royal court, 1893 to 1905. Rasputin's travels led him to the famed monasteries of Verkhachori, where he studied with holy men and developed his own radical interpretations of orthodox teachings. His unorthodox approach, preaching that one must sin to achieve redemption, attracted both followers and critics. By the early 1900s, Rasputin had gained a reputation as a holy man, a healer, and a mystic. His growing influence brought him to St. Petersburg, where he caught the attention of powerful aristocrats and eventually the Romanov family. His most significant moment came when he was introduced to Tsarina Alexandra, who believed Rasputin had the divine power to heal her son, Alexei, the heir to the throne who suffered from hemophilia. The bond formed between Rasputin and the royal family would become one of the most controversial aspects of his life. In the next episode, we will uncover how Rasputin's rise to power altered the fate of Russia, and how his influence over the Tsar and Tsarina led to conspiracies, assassination attempts, and his ultimate downfall. Stay tuned for the next chapter of Dark History Files. The rise to the imperial court, 1905 to 1914. St. Petersburg was a city of contrasts. The opulence of the nobility coexisted with the hunger and desperation of the peasants. In this environment, Rasputin arrived as an outsider with an aura of mysticism that quickly captured the attention of the elite. The meeting with the Romanovs, the beginning of power. The key moment in his rise occurred in 1905 when he was introduced to Empress Alexandra Fyodorovna and Tsar Nicholas II. The Empress, deeply religious and desperate to find a cure for her son Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia, was immediately fascinated by Rasputin. The supposed miracle happened shortly after. In 1907, during a severe crisis of the Tsarevich, Rasputin was urgently called to the palace. He spent hours praying beside the child, and by the next day, the bleeding had stopped. No one could explain it. From that moment on, Alexandra considered him a messenger of God, and his influence over the imperial family was solidified. The secrets of the court: orgies, espionage, and conspiracies. While the empress revered him, the nobility despised him. Rumors spread that he organized orgies in aristocratic homes, convincing women to surrender to lust as a form of purification. Some saw him as a German spy, others as a British agent, and still, others simply as a manipulator who used his power over the empress to influence the empire's politics. What is certain is that as his power grew, so did his enemies. Rasputin in World War I, 1914 to 1916. When World War I broke out, Rasputin tried to persuade the Tsar not to enter the conflict, predicting that it would bring ruin to Russia. Nicholas II did not listen and led the country into war. The failed assassination, the man who would not die. In 1914, a woman named Kainia Guseva attempted to assassinate him in broad daylight. She stabbed him in the abdomen, tearing through his intestines. Rasputin was presumed dead, but against all odds, he survived. Many saw this as proof of his immortality. Others began to fear him even more. The monk who ruled from the shadows. With the Tsar at the front, the empress was left in charge of the government, but in reality, it was Rasputin who made the decisions. His influence grew to such an extent that politicians and generals began to see him as the true ruler of Russia. This sealed his fate. The conspiracy and assassination, December 16th to 17th, 1916. A group of aristocrats, led by Prince Felix Yusupov, decided that Rasputin had to die. The strangest assassination in history. On the night of December 16th, 1916, Yusupov invited him to his palace under the pretense of introducing him to his wife. In the basement, he served him wine and pastries laced with cyanide. But Rasputin did not die. Desperate, they shot him in the chest. He collapsed, seemingly dead. But when Yusupov approached, Rasputin opened his eyes and attacked him. He fled into the courtyard, where he was shot several more times and finally thrown into the Neva River. The autopsy revealed that he had not died from the poison or the gunshots, but by drowning. Some believe his death was even more mysterious, involving British spies. Rasputin's legacy and the fall of the Romanovs, 1917 to 1918. Before his death, Rasputin left a warning for the empress. "If I die at the hands of the nobility, the dynasty will fall within 2 years." And so it was. In 1917, the Russian Revolution overthrew Nicholas II. In 1918, the entire Romanov family was executed. Rasputin, the mad monk, the healer, the manipulator, the prophet. His shadow remained alive in the history of Russia. Conclusion and farewell for Dark History Files. Rasputin was not just a simple peasant turned mystic, nor merely a manipulator with boundless ambitions. He was a symbol of a decaying empire, a man who embodied the fascination with the forbidden, the mystery of the unexplainable, and the power of suggestion. His story is not just that of a man impossible to kill, but of a Russia trapped between blind faith and the inevitable fall of its monarchy. But who was Rasputin really? A prophet with inexplicable gifts, or an opportunist who knew how to play with the beliefs and fears of his time? His legacy remains an enigma, and perhaps in history, some questions have no definitive answers. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, help me continue unearthing the darkest secrets of history. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so YouTube lets you know every time we publish a new dark file. Give it a like if this story captivated you, and share it with those who love mystery and the unknown. In Dark History Files, every story is a portal to the unexplainable, and you are part of this community of truth seekers. See you in the next episode, if history allows it. Until next time, explorers of the occult.